Okay, good day everyone. So I want us to look at grade 11 November paper, mathematics November paper 2023 from KZN. So I want us to look at the Trig graph. So the reason why we're looking at this type of a question is because we have covered the basics of Trig graphs in the last lesson that we uploaded. So just make sure that you look or watch rather the two lessons that I uploaded on the basics of trig graphs so that you'll be able to answer this kind of questions here, right? So let's quickly look at this question. It's a very quick question to look at. Question 6, it says that in the diagram, the graph of the function f of x is equal to cos x over 2 is drawn on the interval x element of minus 180 degrees to 180 degrees, right? So that is what we are given. Those are the conditions we are given. So we cannot change the conditions that we are given, right? Now, the first question says, what is the amplitude of f? Okay, what is the amplitude of f? The amplitude of f is easy. It is 1. Why do we say 1? Because your graph is that from here all the way to there. The other way to also know that is 1, what did we say on the last lesson? We say you will see it by the value there. So here, there, if there's nothing, there's 1. That means my amplitude is simply as 1. Okay. Now, the second one says, write down the period of f. Now, this one is an interesting one because we are given that f of x is equal to cos x over 2. Which, pay attention to this, which is the same as cos half of x. Cos half x, right? And then what is our period on this function? You will remember that we did mention or did say that whenever you have a value here, it changes your period. So you will go and say your new period, it is your old period divided by that half, which is 720 degrees. Okay? What I'm basically saying is that go back and revise those basics of trig graphs. We did mention that b changes the period. So you say the original period divided by b. In this case, b is half, which makes our period 720. Okay, let's move to the next question. The next question says, draw the graph of g of x is equal to sine x minus 30 degrees for the interval that we are given there on the axis provided above. Clearly indicate all intercepts with the axis and the turning points, right? Okay, so here we are told that we must go and draw the g of x graph in the same axis. Okay, so the g of x graph is, we are given as sine x minus 30. So on our previous lesson, I indicated that 30 degrees simply shift the graph to the right. Because you have a minus, that means your graph had shifted 30 degrees to the right. Okay, your graph is going to rather start somewhere here. Okay, so now you replace where there's x, you replace by 0 degrees. At 0 degrees, what is my value of y? So you will say on the calculator sine 0 minus 30, which is minus half, which is somewhere there. Sine 30 minus 30, which is 0. Sine 60 minus 30, which is half, which is somewhere there. Then sine 90 minus 60, okay, looks like I did something wrong. Sine, let's go back, sine 60 minus 30, that is half. Okay, then sine 90 minus 30. Okay, I was right. Sine 90 minus 30 is 0.8, which is somewhere there. Sine 120 minus 30, which is 150 minus 30, which is 0.8. 180. Sine 180 minus 60, sine 180 minus 30, which is half, which is somewhere there. So this is our half. So our graph will look like this, will look like that. Okay, and then it will go on like that. So it will come somewhere here, and then it will come 10, say sine minus 30 minus 30, which is negative 0.8. So it will be something like that. And then it will go on, and it will be here, and then here, and then 0, and then 0.5. Okay, so our graph will be something like that. Okay, now that is our graph of g of x, right? So I'm sure you guys have different ways of plotting this graph, so I was basically doing it manually. So you can also use maybe a calculator and let the calculator get those values for you. Okay, let's move to the next question. Now the next question says, this is an interesting one. Write down the values of x in the interval x element of negative 180 to 180 for which f of x times g of x is greater than 0. So we spoke about this one, right? They want the values of x where g of x, f of x times g of x is greater than 0. What do they mean? They mean that write the values of x where both your graphs are positive or both your graphs are negative. Again, what does that mean? Write the values of x where both your graphs are above x-axis or both your graphs are below x-axis. Now let's go up to our graph. So if we look at this condition, our graph, this graph, it's above x-axis, and also this graph is above x-axis until here, meaning up until this point here, going to the left, both of my graphs are above x-axis, which is what I want. So between minus 150 and minus 180, my graph are above x-axis. Okay, which is exactly what I want. What is the answer to that one is x is greater than or equal to 180, less than or equal to negative 150. Okay, now let's go back and look at another condition. So now, once you pass negative 150, one of the graph is below x-axis. This graph is below x-axis. But we want both the graphs to be above x-axis. But at 30 degrees, now again, both your graphs above x-axis all the way to 180. You'll see that your graph here is above x-axis, and the other graph is also above x-axis, which is exactly what we want. So it's between 30 degrees and 180. So the second part is that is between x is greater than or equal to 30 degrees or less than or equal to 180 degrees. Okay, that is the case. Now the second one, or the next question, says write down the values of x in the interval x element of 0 degrees to 180 for which g of x is equal to f of x plus half. Now we're given a condition that let's only look at 0 degrees until 180, right? Where g of x is equal to f of x plus half. So now this question here, they tried to trick us. If they had asked us where f of g of x is equal to g of x is equal to f of x, we will go and look at where the two graphs are crossing each other or where the two graphs intersect. But in this case, they said plus f of x plus half. What are we going to do here? We're going to our f of x and add half. That means our f of x shift or will shift half unit or units up. Okay, let's go up. We want the condition where f of x shift 1/2 unit up. So this value here, I rather use a different color. This value here will shift and come here. And this value will shift and come there. And this value will shift. And this value is half. Will shift and come here. And this value is 0. Will shift and come there. So now our graph is going to look like this. That is our f of x plus half. It has shifted half unit up. Now they want us to give the values of x where f of x plus half is equal to g of x. Okay, what was our g of x? Our g of x is purple. So where the two graphs meet. Okay, the two graphs meet right here at 120. And they also meet at 180. Okay. So they meet at 120 and 180. So in actual sense, in actual fact, we will then say that the values of the value is when x is equal to 120 or when x is equal to 180. Because our graph has now shifted half unit up. So we realize that because this was half, it will come and sit here. Because this was at 0, it will come and sit at half, which makes this point and that point equal to g of x. Okay, now let's look at the last question. The last question now says that the graph of h is obtained by reflecting the graph of g in the y-axis. Write down the equation of h. Okay, the graph of, by reflecting the graph of g. So what was the graph of g? The graph of g of x was given as sine x minus 30. Then they say the graph of h is obtained by reflecting g of x in the y-axis. So when you reflect a graph by y-axis, only the values of x will change. Okay, that means where there's x, you put minus x. And then you are done. Because when you reflect a graph, if this point is here, and then you're reflecting by y-axis, it will be right there. The only value that changed is the value of x. The value of x was 2, and then the value of x here is now negative 2. Hence, we only go to where the x is, and then we put where the x is, and we put negative. And that's it. And that is the answer. But if you want to be a mathematician, and you want to write it in mathematical good way, you will then write something like this, right? And then you want to get rid of the minus inside the bracket, and then you realize that mathematically you have this quadrant where cos is positive, and this quadrant is also referred as minus theta. So only cos is positive here, sine is negative, then therefore you'll say something like this. So this is our answer. Even if you've given your answer in this form, it's very much acceptable. So it's not always necessary to just write it like this. You can keep it like that, it's fine. But yeah, for those that would want to write it in this form, they are more than welcome. All right. Thank you for listening.